I listened to your Resurge podcast, and a topic you've brought up, the negative world concept by Aaron Wren, who wrote that essay on this cultural model. And for those that aren't familiar with it, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but over the past few decades, we shift from a positive world where the church or being Christian just had a much more kind of positive impact on maybe the way the world outside the church viewed us being Christians, and then it kind of shifted to more neutral, where it's like, kind of neutral, could be good, could be bad in certain situations. And then now today, I think he says since about 2014 to today, the default posture the world takes towards the church is quite negative one. I would love to hear more of your perspective of how that applies to technology use in the church, how the church allocates its funds and resources towards the amazing AV systems we got to tour today and things like that. When we live in this world because we're visiting churches all the time, we're installing it ourselves. That's probably the most common, what I think is a symptom of negative world feedback that we'll see. We'll post a video and people are like, tax the church. Those funds could have been given to those. They could have been given to the poor.
Was that your video?
Yeah, went viral. Thanks, Blaine.
Right. These clips. Honestly,
thanks, John Chris. For
today, I literally.
Did you see that? So Blaine posted a clip. It was awesome.
The one on John Christ.
Yeah, the one on John Christ. That was us.
Yeah.
That was us. He just posted of our what do we call that room up there?
Our broadcast suite, video suite. Yeah,
it was like went totally viral.
Yeah,
and then John Chris did like a react video to it. Like 30 people did react videos to it.
Yeah.
But to your point, negative world. Everyone approaches churches with cynicism.
Yeah,
and the bigger you are, the more cynical they are.
Yeah.
So that's like you got to be, to the Apple Maps analogy, you got to know where you are, and then you got to move out from there. So that's a thing.
So what's your advice for us? Because we're the church AV guys, and maybe this is more of a counseling therapy for us dealing with all the hate and stuff. But yeah, it's
personal opinion.
Yeah,
I think I'd love to know if you guys agree, disagree. Additional comments. Personal opinion. I think loudest boos come from the cheapest seats.
Yeah.
I think the contingent of people who see a video like Blaine's video over here.
Thanks, Blaine.
Follow
Blaine.
And they're like...
Blaine is actually cutting this video right now for us. Great job, Blaine.
I think the percentage of people who see that and like, hate it is really small but really loud.
Yeah.
And that person wasn't coming to your church anyway. So honestly, man, I think it's probably a little overblown as far as how serious that is. Now, I'm kind of careful on stuff that, that I'll post. I kind of have that in mind. Over time, you kind of learn like, oh, that's the landmine. Oh, that's the landmine. And, so
Jake likes to step directly onto the landmine.
Me too,
sometimes.
The rest of the team is like, oh, he didn't just post that.
Discover landmines by stepping on them. That's a... I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
You actually probably heard it on the Resurge podcast. Every now and then, I'll find spots to explain. I've done it. I think I've done it on our Live Free podcast for our church before. Like just to help people get their head around big church stuff, I'll drop into sermons like little diffusing concepts. Like I'll anticipate negative world, big church cynicism, and I'll diffuse the cynicism in a sermon. Like for instance, these guys have heard, I do this at least once a year. People talk about, Lake Point is, 25,000 people. You're just all about the numbers, all about the numbers, all about the numbers. And I'll just say that in a sermon. And I'll say, yep, absolutely we are. We are all about the numbers of addicts getting freed, of orphans getting adopted, of marriages getting restored. We are all about the numbers of people getting saved. And I'll just go right at it. Well, what I'm doing there is I'm anticipating the negative world cynicism thing. And then let me acknowledge it. And when you name the demon, it removes a measure of power from it. And then you diffuse it. So like even with the production thing, I've done this in the Live Free pod, where I'll explain to people, to our church, like there's concepts and business dudes get it. As soon as, in fact, when they hear you say it, business guys in your church are like, oh, that guy's smart. He knows how to think. like big church and multi-site, there's, organizational concepts like economy of scale and cost per use. So like, I know this sounds weird, and I'm in no way am I making a value judgment on size of churches. In fact, I just want to point this out. Who is it in the Bible that looks at the expenditure of things that were spent on bringing glory, honor, and attention to Jesus and says,
Judas.
This money should have been spent on the poor? Yeah. Judas.
Yeah.
There's only one dude in the Bible that does that. It's Judas. So if you find yourself on Team Judas, get a different team. So like if you start noticing, dang, I'm saying the stuff Judas said, that's like not a great warning sign.
The J in WWJD does not stand for Judas.
I'm going to start handing people, hey, here's your bracelet. Yeah. You get the WWJD, the Judas
Somebody
bracelet.
thought my middle son's name when I introduced them, that his name was Judas. His name's Judah. And I was like, do I not accentuate my consonants very well? I'm so sorry.
Here's my other kid, Ahab and Jezebel. So that I keep going in circles. What I'll do sometimes for our church is I've explained at Live Free is with the economy of scale and cost per use, we spend a way less percentage of our budget on things like production and technology than my church did when we were 75 people.
Yeah.
So if you just go by percentage, we spend way less on production and technology, I want to say that one more time, than my church plant did at 75 people. Yeah. So again, it's just, you're thinking an economy of scale. But anyway, I'll explain that to people. And sometimes when people have a little hang up, they'll hear it and they'll go, oh, that totally makes sense. And they feel great.
Yeah. People don't like math generally, though.
No, usually what people do is they're not actually looking for an answer. They're looking for data to reinforce the thing they already hate.
Yeah.
And some of it's based on a very real wound, but oftentimes this is not that.
Yeah.
Like I think that
I think a very, very small part of it is based on a real wound. But he's being more gracious than me.
Yeah, I think that the couple things that I try to think about, and first, it's easy to cast judgment based on a context you have no idea of what's happening. But when you get close to things, like if you knew the amount of times Pastor Josh asked questions about what's the right thing to do, not like what's the most even cost-effective thing to do, that's a part of it, but like what's the right thing? Like a leader who doesn't care about the financial integrity of his church doesn't ask those questions of his leaders. A leader who doesn't care about the financial integrity of his church will just buy the PA without getting 5 other quotes. So if you knew the scrutiny that happened inside, you probably wouldn't have the perspective, which I understand you may not have. But just because you don't have it doesn't mean that everything is that. Meaning, that they're just spending a god-awful amount of money on all that. The other thing I would say is, this is not 2004.
Yeah, that's good, Chris.
I toured full-time for a part of my life, and I remember trying to get a 7mm wall cost so much.
Yeah.
The scale and the cost now for things that back, even in the early 2000s, looked like you spent an arm and a leg on, we have fixtures now that are pennies on the dollar of what they used to because the technology has increased. But people that don't live in that world don't understand, a 4K camera doesn't cost as much as it used to when that technology was brand new. And so again, if you knew the amount of meetings we were in of like, do we need to fully transition to that technology, or can we wait for it to become more cost effective for our usage? So I just think there's so much happening, and I'm just thankful that we're not afraid to use these tools to reach people. We're also not afraid to cut a tool if it's us serving the tool. If it's putting us, like we're being very cost effective for the scale that we are. That's a poor way of explaining what he already said. But I think the way that those things are being scrutinized, just be careful to cast judgment that you have no idea about the context.
Well, it's helpful. Because I think I get concerned that sometimes church leaders hear that negative world feedback on these things, and it is very loud, and that just also prevents them from thinking big about what's possible, sometimes underestimating, that the church actually could find ways to have the resources to invest into better infrastructure for things. And it just, again, the noises and the loudness of the haters can sometimes just like hold people back from just thinking bigger and dreaming bigger for what's possible.
I think 2 other rules of thumb for me too is like when you read about the tabernacle.
Yeah.
Dude, the cost of goods in the tabernacle.
Yes.
Now, again, God prescribed those exact things. He did not prescribe what console we're going to use in front of house.
Yep.
In the Old Testament law, I can't find it. He would probably say, did you? But I think that's something to note. Like when we're stewarding the presence of God, we should not come to it haphazardly, but with intention and our best foot forward. And some of these things are tools to incite or to bring or make clear the gospel of Jesus.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
And so if a tool can become a barrier to that being clear, I'm going to spend more dollars on making sure that thing doesn't crash in the middle of the message, and therefore cost attention of those listening. So I think that's another great thing to remember is,
you got to do it with wisdom. So there's limitations on this analogy, but the best message deserves the best presentation.